MPU team.
B213, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the honourable member will recall that in my reply to parliamentary question B/130 of 6th of April 2021, I highlighted the fact that the composition, powers and mode of operation of a Public Accounts Committee have so far guaranteed its effectiveness and usefulness as the main watchdog of our public finances. Besides, I also mentioned that honourable members always have the opportunity to seek information on the contents of both the report of the Director of Audit and of the report of the Public Accounts Committee through private notice questions and parliamentary questions. Such an opportunity is exemplified by the number of parliamentary questions addressed at last Tuesday's and at today's sittings to ministers on the contents of both reports. Moreover, honourable members have, during the debates on the appropriation bill, the possibility to express their views amply on the contents of the reports of the Public Accounts Committee and that of the Director of Audit. On this side of the House, we do not therefore see any need or any justification to amend the standing orders and rules of the National Assembly to allow debate in the Assembly on these reports. Mr. Speaker, sir, having said this, I hasten to add that the government is not here to condone, nor shall it condone, any mismanagement and wastage of public funds. However, we do seriously and responsibly believe that we need to act on the findings and recommendations of the Public Accounts Committee in its reports, wherever and whenever necessary and justified, rather than engage in more debates and discussions in the Assembly. The House will already have noted that in the last Public Accounts Committee report, it is stated, and I quote, "The general perception is that the reports of the Director of Audit and of the Public Accounts Committee fall on deaf ears, and no significant improvement is noted in the management of public finance." Unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is far from the truth. As a matter of fact, since 2015, after successive reports of the Director of Audit and the Public Accounts Committee, the government has taken numerous steps to ensure that public funds are spent according to the authority of Parliament and that government obtains value for money for all expenditure from public funds. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is both relevant and pertinent that I remind the House of the main measures taken by the government since 2015, following the observations made by the Director of Audit in his successive reports. These measures include the following. In 2015, the Finance and Audit Act was amended to require every ministry and government department to prepare an annual report on performance for submission to the Ministry of Finance. Consequently, a guideline was issued in November 2016 by the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development to assist ministries, departments in the preparation of their annual reports on performance. To further improve expenditure management, accountability and transparency, measures were announced in the 2018-2019 budget speech for the Finance and Audit Act to be amended to make it mandatory for ministries and departments to include an implementation plan in their annual report for preventing recurrence of shortcomings reported by the Director of Audit. Accordingly, the Finance and Audit Act was further amended in 2018. The annual report now includes a statement showing an implementation plan for remedial action and for preventing the recurrence of the shortcomings, including wastage of public funds referred to in the report of the Director of Audit. In this respect, the guidelines on the preparation of the annual report on performance were amended and circulated to ministries, departments, and as at date, all annual reports on performance received from ministries, departments include the implementation plan for remedial actions on the issues raised by the Director of Audit. Mr. Speaker, sir, moreover, the government has already taken several other measures which include the following: the setting up of audit committees at the level of ministries, departments to implement the recommendations of the report of the National Audit Office, the Public Accounts Committee, and the internal control units. The submission of financial statements by statutory bodies to the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development within the prescribed deadlines and as per the standards required. The setting up of the Project Implementation and Monitoring Agency to ensure the smooth and timely implementation of projects and budgetary measures. Guidelines for the establishment of risk management in the public sector, the development of appropriate training program on risk management by the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development in collaboration with the Ministry of Public Service, Administrative and Institutional Reforms and the Mauritius Civil Service College, and the launching of the Corporate Governance Scorecard by the National Committee on Corporate Governance. The scorecard will measure objectively the level of compliance of Mauritian organizations with governance practices. Mr. Speaker, sir, I must point out that the recommendations made in the last report of the Public Accounts Committee are currently being examined by the ministries concerned. Mr. Speaker, sir, with hindsight, the Director of Audit and the Public Accounts Committee have, in all their reports to all governments, made criticisms on the management of public funds and also made recommendations, and this is certainly not something new. However, what is important is that we accept the criticisms when they are justified, of course, and we take corrective measures so as to improve over time our public sector financial management and accountability framework so that it remains relevant and responsive to present-day requirements and realities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, in this August Assembly, on two occasions, in 2016 and 2018, the former Prime Minister, Sainur Jagannath, stated that the recommendation of the PAC has been examined by a committee of officials under the chairmanship of the former Secretary of Cabinet and Head of Civil Service, and that he's holding further consultation before proposing amendment to the standing order. So may I know from the Honourable Prime Minister why this volte-face of this government, whereas Sir Anil Jagnat gave the impression that he was all in favour of empowering the PAC and giving it more powers. Now today we hear that your government do not want to have the PAC report debated in this House.
Speaker, sir, there is no volte-face. The honourable member has himself quoted what Sir Anil Jagnat, then Prime Minister, has stated, that there were recommendations and that those recommendations were being examined. But they are being examined. Ultimately, we have come to the conclusion that there is sufficient opportunities for members to study, to debate, to ask questions on the report of the Public Accounts Committee and also, of course, of the report of the Director of Audit. So this is the conclusion, and I've just stated the reasons why we have come to such a conclusion.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. Can the Honourable Prime Minister state whether there is a follow-up mechanism in place to ensure that the recommendation of the Public Accounts Committee report and that of the Director of Audit are being looked into for their implementation or otherwise?
Well, first of all, there is already at the level of the Ministry of Finance a team that looks at the recommendations that are made by the Public Accounts Committee, and obviously when the report of the Director of Audit is tabled, and instructions are also given to each ministry to see to it that they look at the comments that have been made with respect to each ministry so that they can come forward with any remedial measures that have to be taken. But we also have the Office of the Public Sector Governance, which is set up under the Ministry of Financial Services and Good Governance, and it is mandated to review and monitor the effectiveness of the audit committees that have been set up at the level of ministries and departments. In fact, the audit committees are required to focus on the implementation of the recommendation of the Public Accounts Committee and the Director of Audit. And these audit committees, they have to submit, Mr. Speaker, sir, quarterly reports to the Office of the Public Sector Governance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since we are talking about PSC report, may I ask the Honourable Prime Minister, as pointed out in the last PSC report, where the then Minister of Commerce and Industry gave verbal instruction to civil servants whether in regards to medical procurement of medical supplies, whether there is an inquiry opened up at the level of ICAC or the committee he just mentioned, and as this is a very serious matter, and where matters stand.
Mr. Speaker, sir, there are so many serious matters, but I hope a honourable member will look at his standing orders and know which question is relevant to this main question. And don't come to this House and just say anything like blah, blah, blah.
Order.
Learn your standing orders.
Order.
Go and learn your standing orders.
Order. Honourable Juan, your question is out of order, but I allowed it. It's up to the Prime Minister to answer. And he has told you the truth. And you have to keep quiet and stay within the standing order. Honourable Mia.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, every year the Director of Audit and the PAC issue their respective reports highlighting major adverse impact on public finance. And this has been the case for all governments. Therefore, can I ask the Honourable Prime Minister, even if he is not agreeable for a debate of the report of the Public Accounts Committee's report in the House, but at least if he can consider to change our legislation so that those who are found responsible for public misuse of public finance and misappropriation of public finance are brought to task.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am really surprised because probably the honourable member has forgotten about how the PAC works. That is the very one of the very purpose also is for when the Public Accounts Committee has evidence that there is wrongdoing by an officer or by anybody, they can always refer the matter to the relevant authorities for investigation. It's already there. So what is there new to legislate? It is up to committees to, when they have a sufficient element, to refer matters for investigation.
Honourable Delay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Prime Minister thus inform the House whether the existing rules and regulations, whether they will be amended to enable appropriate action to be taken against those officers named and mentioned in the report for breach of standard practice or procedures, and thereby ultimately leading to waste of public funds? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have just replied to this question that was put. Actually, if there is any evidence with regard to any officer or anyone having gone against the law, the matter can always be referred to any of the investigative bodies for them to investigate, and then ultimately, should there be any action to be taken, that those bodies will be taking such action. Now, I am also told that in case any officer is found to be at fault, well, action, of course, will have to be taken. There's no need for, under the existing rules and regulations, so there's no need for any amendment to the law.
Honourable Nagalingam.
Can I ask the Honourable Prime Minister if he will consider recommendation of the PAC to the effect that government should come forward with legislation based on SADC model law of public finance management?
SADC model law, well, if I can recall, the model law that is being discussed is still in a draft form. There is no such SADC model law. It has not yet been approved. It is being discussed. So maybe if an honourable member can correct me. Well, here I'm informed that the SADC model law on public financial management is still under discussion and has not yet been adopted by the SADC Parliamentary Forum. But let me add also, I'm not prejudging what is going to happen. It is going to be discussed eventually. Even if it is adopted, Mr. Speaker, sir, it's going to be a benchmark for all countries to look at what is recommended and to see whether it suits the system that is in place. In each country, we must also recognize that in SADC, we have different parliamentary systems also, with different practices, if I can call that. So I have in Mauritius, we have, in my reply, I've stated there are so many measures that have been taken in order to address the issue. Now, let me say another thing also with regard to, because we are talking about debate, the PAC is mandated to look at the report of the Director of Audit and make observations, recommendations, of course. Now, if we're going to again debate on these issues, where are we going to end up? it's a question of, let's see what are the solutions. And rightly so, Honorable Mia has said that throughout so many governments, there have been criticisms from the Director of Audit about la gestion des fonds publics. There have been so many remarks that have been made before when we were in government together, MSMMM, when the Labour and PMSD were in government, now when we are in government. So we need to look at how we address those issues, how we see to it that there is efficient use of public funds, and obviously, certainly, that there is no wastage of public funds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Members from both sides have been talking about different amendments. And I was made to understand that our parliamentarian system is based on a Westminster system. So I would like to ask the Honourable Prime Minister, is it a common practice to debate on these reports, like example from the UK? Do such debates occur in the Parliament? Thank you.
Well, in fact, I tried to find out what obtains in the UK, Mr. Speaker, sir. I am informed that from advice sought and obtained from the UK House of Commons, that in the Westminster system there is no requirement for reports of any select committee, including, of course, the Public Accounts Committee, to be subject of debate in the House. In fact, the UK House of Commons, the Committee of the Public Accounts, is governed by Standing Order 148. And the said Standing Order does not contain a provision requiring the report of the Committee on Public Accounts to be debated. In fact, as I say, there is no requirement for committee reports to be subject of debate in the House of Commons. So reports are not referred to the House for debate, but can be debated if desired, that is, upon a motion brought to that effect. And this is what obtains also here.
The Honourable Prime Minister, in his reply, mentioned a series of measures taken by his government to reduce mismanagement of funds, and he also said in his reply that action are taken against officers who has been guilty of mismanagement of funds. Taking this into consideration, how is it then, Honourable Prime Minister, that up to now, no action, no sanction has been taken against any officer, including any ministers who've been involved in the allocation of contract during the COVID pandemic, despite criticism from the Directors of Audit and in the report of the PAC?
Well, you have been chairing the Public Accounts Committee. Have you been able to find any prima facie case against any officer or anyone? Yes, if you have, then you have omitted in your duty to refer the matter to the competent authorities for investigation. You are condoning, in fact, you are condoning.
Order. Order. Honorable Danu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can we know from the Prime Minister whether any motion has been received by the National Assembly with regards to a debate on the report of the Public Accounts Committee?
Well, if I can recall, Mr. Speaker, sir, there has been, according to the records of the National Assembly, 1969 to date, does not reveal any receipt of any such motion. But let me draw the attention of the honourable members to a parliamentary question B/1222 of the 11th of December 1979 in regard to discussion on the report of the Public Accounts Committee. The reply of the then Prime Minister was as follows, and I quote, "Sir, as far as I am aware, the report of the Public Accounts Committee has never been discussed in the House. The practice has always been for the Ministry of Finance to submit its comments on the report of the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, and this practice will continue," end of quote.
Nous Nous parlons ici du Public Accounts Committee. Nous voyons la réticence du Premier ministre à débattre du rapport de la PAC dans l'Assemblée nationale. Est-ce que le Premier ministre confirme à la Chambre le fait que les membres du gouvernement siègent sur le Public Accounts Committee, l'honorable Ramiad, Chief Whip du gouvernement, est-ce que le Premier ministre confirme à la Chambre qu'il encourage tous les membres du PAC à faire une déposition à la police par rapport à ce que certains membres du gouvernement, les gaspillages qui ont été vus par le PAC?
What nonsense are you talking about, honorable member? Really, real nonsense. This honorable member, Mr. Speaker, sir, this honorable member does not understand the functioning of a committee. When there is a chair in the committee, there are findings. The findings are from every member of that committee. Then it is for recommendations to be made. It is for actions to be taken. And it is for the chairperson to refer any case to any investigative authorities. And that is the way we function. Probably he should become a member of that. I don't know if he's a member of that committee. He's not. So next time maybe you will learn how this committee functions.
Monsieur le Président, en des points d'ordre. Permettez-moi. Le Premier ministre est acculé, il devient agressif. Je demande au Premier ministre de retirer le mot nonsense par rapport à ma question.
Order. You say accusations against members of the government. You said it. You say accusations against members of government. You said that. You have to withdraw that, and I will ask the Prime Minister to withdraw the nonsense word. Both of you.
Du gouvernement n'est pas accusé?
Yes.
Mais il est dedans.
No, you say that members of the government are accused. It may be cited, but this is not the point. You're pointing towards ministers of the government.
I will do, okay.
You withdraw that. You withdraw. And Prime Minister will withdraw the word nonsense. Okay.
I withdraw.
Honorable Bilen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I listened to Prime Minister very intently, and he said that his policy is to eliminate wastage of public funds and to prevent recurrence of shortage. Can I ask him, why is it that his government has done away with what we call base budgeting, the program-based budgeting, which was done away by the government when it came into power in 2015. And when you were Minister of Finance, you subscribed fully to this policy.
Mr. Speaker, sir, well, when there are changes, that doesn't mean to say that we become less accountable with regard to the use of public funds. As I have said in my answer, not only do we have to see to it that public funds are being used judiciously, but we have taken a number of the measures in order to see to it that this happens. But of course, it also, I must say, it also depends on officers. They must act in a diligent manner, they must act promptly, and they must see to it that, as we say, public funds should be used in the most efficient way.
Thank you. Can I ask the Prime Minister, who will be Minister of Finance, but that's going through records, how many accounting officers have been taken to task, either suspended, either dismissed by government, following severe criticisms made in many public accountability reports and also recommendations made by that committee? Can the Prime Minister have an indication how many officers have been taken to task, dismissed or suspended, following severe mismanagement of funds? And does it not consider it's high time now to at least implement a Fiscal Responsibility Act and involve all these, I would say,
fraudulent act which was in the management of public finance. Well, as even a member of the opposition has acknowledged, every year the Director of Audit has emitted a number of criticisms with regard to the use of public funds under different governments. Now, how many officers have been taken to task? I will certainly look at the period from 2000 to 2005, the period of 2005 to 2014, and from 2014 to date. And obviously, I need notice of that question because I need to find out. I don't have this information with me.
The table is advised that PQ B219, B220, B222, B223, B224, B225, B227 have been withdrawn. Question to ministers. The table has been advised that PQ B241 will be replied by the Honourable Minister of National Infrastructure and Community Development. That PQ B250, 259, 265, 283, 291 have been withdrawn. Honourable David.
B229.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed that in November 2015, the Commonwealth Head of Government endorsed the setting up of the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub program with a view to assisting the adaptation and mitigation strategies of vulnerable states. Various donor agencies contributed to the implementation of the program of the hub. In that respect, the Secretariat of the hub enlisted the services of national climate change finance advisors to provide long-term technical assistance to the vulnerable states. From 3rd May 2017 to 2nd of June 2020, Mr. Patrick Karani, of Kenyan origin, was the first national climate finance advisor to Mauritius on a 3-year contract. He held a Bachelor's of Education with specialization in economics and business studies, Master's in International Development and Social Change with specialization in Economic Development, a Doctor of Philosophy in International Political Economy with focus on industrial rationalization within the framework of the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer, and a certificate in leadership and management with specialization in natural resources and the environment. And he had over 25 years of experience in mainstreaming climate finance readiness into climate change policy, sustainable development, environmental matters, clean development mechanism, climate, infrastructure investment, amongst others. Mr. Speaker, sir, in June 2020, following the termination of the contract of Mr. Karani, the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub initiated actions for the recruitment of a new national climate finance advisor, pursuant to an international call from a pool of consultants by the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub and a screening exercise effected at the level of my ministry. Mr. Irfan Tariq from Pakistan had been selected as the new national climate finance advisor. However, Mr. Tariq could not accept the post owing to delays in his release formalities at the level of the government of Pakistan. Consequently, the Commonwealth Secretariat formally engaged with Mr. Nirendra from the Malawi, the second best candidate for the post of National Climate Finance Advisor. The latter unfortunately advised the Human Resources Department of the Commonwealth Secretariat that he was no longer in a position to accept the post. In light of those circumstances, the Commonwealth Secretariat advertised the post of National Climate Finance Advisor ANU, with closing date the 14th March 2022. A total of 7 applications had been received, out of which 5 had been retained following an interim screening exercise. An interview panel led by the Commonwealth Secretariat thereafter undertook an evaluation of those 5 applications from the 6th of April to the 7th of April 2022. The name of the new National Climate Finance Advisor is expected to be communicated to my ministry by the Commonwealth Secretariat within 2 or 3 weeks. With regard to paragraph A of the question, in line with terms of reference, the prospective National Climate Finance Advisor should hold a postgraduate qualification in any of the following fields, namely climate change, environmental studies, economics, natural resources management, energy, project management, business studies, and other related subjects. Moreover, the latter should possess at least 8 years of work experience in climate policy development and management of projects in the area of climate change, energy, forestry, biodiversity, agriculture, and technical assistance initiatives. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to part B of the question, I am informed by the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub that Mr. Karani was paid £55,000 annually, excluding allowances and benefits. That is around £4,583 monthly, excluding allowances and benefits. The incoming National Climate Finance Advisor would also be paid the same amount, excluding allowances and benefits, of course.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je comprends dans la réponse du ministre que donc ce conseiller national sur le changement climatique est essentiellement un conseiller sur les questions de finances, ce qui tombe bien parce que le combat de notre pays face aux effets du changement climatique est un combat grandement financier, et dans les dernières contributions déterminées au niveau national soumises par l'île Maurice, 100 milliards de roupies doivent être trouvés d'ici 2030 pour financer les mesures d'atténuation et d'adaptation, ce qui fait donc 11 milliards de roupies par an. Puis-je demander au ministre si le conseiller national, donc sur les questions de finances, aura donc comme responsabilité un devoir de conseil auprès du gouvernement mauricien sur les sources et les mécanismes de financement de ces 11 milliards de roupies par an à trouver localement.
Le Président, let me add that during his assignment, Mr. Karani has been able to mobilize climate finance to the tune of $3,542,857 USD for 2 projects. I'm giving this information just to say that, yes, the future advisor will bring his contribution for us to have the necessary funds to finance the nationally determined contributions.
Thank you. The Honourable Minister has mentioned that the advisor was also involved in policy formulation. Can I ask him whether the advisor has made positive contribution in that sense, because our nationally determined contribution for 2030 and 2050 timelines do not quite have clear targets at this moment in time. How to achieve these targets at this moment in time?
Monsieur le Président, je pense que l'honorable membre sera d'accord avec moi que le libellé de la question, cela concerne principalement hired under the Commonwealth Climate Finance Hub. He will state if the latter holds office on a permanent contractual basis, indicating qualifications, experience, monthly pay packet. Si l'honorable membre vient de l'avant avec un substantive question concernant le policy decision, je me ferai un plaisir de lui répondre, Monsieur le Président.
Next question.
B230.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed by the Wastewater Management Authority that the region of Latour-Kenick in Pointe-aux-Sables is partly sewered. The NHDC housing estates, Cité Débat Cadère, Cité Ilois, CHA estates and the industrial zone are connected to the public sewer network, while Terrasson is an unsewered area where the inhabitants have an on-site disposal system. The Wastewater Management Authority has received requests from the residents of Terrasson and neighboring regions for the provision of sewer facilities in order to mitigate the nuisance caused by overflow of pits. The Wastewater Management Authority has assessed that the permeability of the soil is quite poor. A survey was thus carried out in the region to check the feasibility of connection to the main sewer line, and in order to ascertain the extent of the area to be sewered, a pre-feasibility study report was prepared in-house by the Wastewater Management Authority in December 2014. The regions identified were Terrasson, Vergémang, Canfiringa, Pointe-Sable, Petit Verger, and Kensington. The pre-feasibility study recommended that a length of 41.8 kilometers of sewer had to be laid to connect 4,000 households, and 5 new pumping stations had to be constructed. The cost of connecting the above regions to the public sewer was estimated at more than 2 billion rupees. Mr. Speaker, sir, in view of the considerable investment involved, it was decided in 2015 that the project be implemented in phases. Thus, the region nearest to the existing public sewer network, that is Kensington, was identified as the first phase of the sewer project. The House may wish to note that the sewerage project at Kensington has been completed in September 2018, with 138 houses connected to the public sewer. Moreover, given the acute sanitary and environmental nuisance prevailing at Flat Guillard due to overflow of wastewater from cesspits and septic tanks, and complaints received from the inhabitants, the local authority and the sanitary authorities, the Wastewater Management Authority is currently implementing a sewerage project at Flat Guillard. Same is expected to be completed by February 2023. 64 apartments will be connected to the newly constructed sewer network along the municipal roads, namely Avenue des Peupliers, Jacquier, and Olivier Street. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the remaining areas to be sewered, the Wastewater Management Authority will hire the services of a consultant in the next financial year to prepare the phasing of the implementation of the project. The consultant will be required to take into consideration the complexity to sewer the whole region of Pointe-Sable, the upgrading of the Montagne-Jacot wastewater treatment plant, and the construction of new pumping stations, including the upgrading of existing ones, as well as the sanitary situation prevailing at the various areas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. On a short-term basis, can the Minister ensure that the WMA provide free pumping services to the inhabitants of Terrasson on a regular basis, if possible, because at least at the hardship cases of septic tank overflow, I have a picture with me I can table to the Minister that the situation is getting worse at Terrasson and also on the main road at Pointe-Sable, just in the corner of La Touquenique Road.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the Wastewater Management Authority provides such services. But honourable members should understand that wastewater projects involves a lot of money, and the Wastewater Management Authority have to find the required funds to implement those projects. As it is in that constituency, let me bring to the attention of the House, the Wastewater Management Authority is already implementing projects in the region of Pai worth worth more than 1 billion rupees. So providing free service, the services will be provided whenever required, but free services cannot be considered at this stage, Mr. Speaker, sir.
I'm grateful for the project done at Kensington mentioned by the Minister and even the one that is starting at Flatgear. But concretely, Honourable Minister, we wanted to know when you're starting the project at Terrasson. There has been so many requests, there has been so many reported cases through the CSU, and at the time I'm talking to you now, the people are just unaware of the situation. When is the Ministry going to start the project? You said there has been a feasibility study, and it dated last 2014, 2015. So we are 5 years away now from the feasibility study.
Yeah, I do understand the situation, Mr. Speaker, prevailing in that region with regard to wastewater. And it is for this reason, when they did that pre-feasibility study, which was estimated at 2 billion rupees, the Wastewater Management Authority decided to implement the project in phases until a feasibility study was carried out. I have told the Wastewater Management Authority to do the needful. That is why in the last paragraph of my reply, I said that we will hire the services of a consultant in the next financial year. We cannot do more than that. And from there, we are going to give priority to the region of Terrasson whenever we implement the project for the whole area, because I understand that the biggest problem is in the area of Terrasson. We are going to give priority to the region of Terrasson when we will be implementing the project for that region, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Since the Minister mentioned the work that's being done at Flatgear, can I find from him if he has information whether the surrounding of Flatgear also will be connected, or it will be only the apartments that he mentioned earlier?
Yeah, from what I understand, Mr. Speaker's information that has been conveyed to me by the Wastewater Authority is that only Flatgear will be connected to the main sewer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The table has been advised that PQ D296, 298, 311, 273, 292, 313, 254, 266, 276, 281, 285, 271, 299, 303 have been withdrawn. Honourable members, will suspend the sitting for 1.5 hours.